So the new administration is speeding up efforts to revitalize the economy by laying out plans to curb inflation and boost consumption. For more on this, we have Park Min-jung, Professor of Business Administration at the Kumoh National Institute of Technology. Professor Park, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me today.
So a key challenge the EU administration faces is soaring food prices. What's behind the increase, and how do you think the government should address this issue?
Yeah, one of the key drivers of rising food prices in Korea under the Lee administration is the combination of global supply chain disruptions and climate-related agriculture instability and increased input costs like fuel or fertilizers. Domestically, labor shortages in rural areas and distribution inefficiencies have further amplified the problem. To address this government should implement a multi-pronged approach. The first is that invest in smart agriculture and automation to boost productivity, stabilize imports through strategic food reserves, and provide targeted subsidies or vouchers for vulnerable populations. Transparency in pricing and stronger oversight of this distribution metrics can also help reduce speculative markups.
Right, and President Lee is focused on drafting an extra budget to address stagnating economic growth, which could include, the idea of giving out vouchers to be used locally. What's your take on this?
Yeah, President Lee's plan to give out local vouchers is a very typical and classical example of a policy that tries to boost demand when the economy is slow. In the short term, these vouchers can help increase household spending, especially if they are given to low and middle income, whose groups are usually spend more of what they receive. This could give a quick boost to local shops and service businesses and possibly help the wider local economy. However, this kind of financial support only gives short-term relief. It means it does not fix the deeper problems that are slowing down Korea's economic growth. The country is facing bigger challenges nowadays, like an aging population, slower productivity in major industries, and less private investments. So to make the policy truly effective and long-lasting, it should be a part of a bigger economic plan. That plan should integrate and include changes in regulations and support for innovation and long-term investments in important future industries like green energy or AI. In short term, so it means, in summary, that the voucher program of a traditional, very classical policy can help in the short term, but for the economy to stay strong in the long term, broader forward-looking reforms are also necessary nowadays.
Right, and the shrinking labor market also remains a crucial challenge for the government. The number of job openings per job seeker is at its lowest level for any month of May since 1998, following the Asian financial crisis. How should the government respond to this?
Yeah, the sharp decline in the number of job openings now per job seeker signals deep structural stress in the labor market. When the ratio hits a 27-year low, especially for May, it means May is a historically active hiring season. It reflects not only slowing economic activity, but also a serious mismatch between labor supply and demand. In the short term, the government should consider direct employment support, such as wage subsidies for SMEs or public sector job programs, and targeted youth employment initiatives to prevent long-term unemployment, especially among vulnerable groups. And also reskilling and upskilling programs are also very critical to help workers transition into sectors with labor shortages such as digital, green, or care economic fields. So in parallel, the government must work with industries to identify structure bottlenecks such as labor regulations, like mobility between sectors or regional imbalances, and also implement reforms to make the job market more dynamic and inclusive.
All right, and another important economic task for the government is reaching a tariff deal with the U.S. before the July deadline. And this is an issue that matters to many industries, including the auto sector. Do you believe the government is on the right track?
Yes, securing a tariff agreement with the U.S. before the July deadline is a critical economic priority, particularly for export-reliant sectors such as automobiles, semiconductors, and batteries. A failure to reach a timely deal could expose Korea firms to higher trade barriers or regulatory uncertainties, weakening their competitiveness in one of their largest markets. Based on the current diplomatic posture and trade conciliations underway, the government appears to be taking proactive steps, engaging in bilateral dialogue, aligning trade firms with broader strategic interests, and seeking exemptions or adjustments that protect key national industries. However, the challenges lies in balancing short-term industrial relief with long-term trade stability and compliance with the evolving U.S. trade policies, especially under shifting political dynamics. So to stay on the right track, Korea must ensure that any agreement not only preserves market access, but also supports supply chain resilience and investment flows between two countries.
Right, what would you say is the most notable difference between President Lee's economic policy and that of former President Yoon?
To understand the most notable differences between the economic policies of President Lee and former President Yoon Suk-yeol, it is important to compare their perspectives in their respective approaches to the role of government, redistribution, and growth strategy. President Lee emphasized a more active role of the government in the economy. His administration promotes inclusive and sustainable growth through expanded fiscal spending and public investment in future-oriented sectors such as green energy and care services. In contrast, former President Yoon adhered to a market-oriented economic framework. It means his administration prioritized private sector-led growth, regulatory reform, fiscal discipline, and also tax incentives to encourage investment and entrepreneurship. These views position the government more as a facilitator rather than a central driver of economic transformation, focusing on structural reforms and supply side efficiency. So the key distinction lies in how each administration perceives the role of the states in economic development. These philosophical differences have shaped their respective fiscal, industrial, and labor policies and reflects divergent paths for Korea economic directions.
All right, Professor Park, thank you so much for your time and insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.